Hello and welcome to the Mistakably Magic Podcast. Here's the news that occurred the week of March 22nd, 2017. Some highlights include the return of a fan favorite show, a new way to get into the parks, and a massive announcement from Paris. Well, kicking off the news this week, Bob Iger has announced... Actually, I'm gonna save that one for last. The nighttime lights over at Hogwarts Castle has returned to Universal Studios Hollywood for a limited time. The nighttime spectacular will run every Saturday and Sunday of this month, and will run daily from the 21st through the 31st. Now, of course, this is over in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. And it is only at the Universal Studios Hollywood. So for those of you in Japan and Orlando, I'm sorry. Maybe you'll get it back, but it's only through the 31st of March, so you aren't missing out on much, I guess. Walt Disney Parks and Google Street View have teamed up to bring anybody with an internet connection into the parks. Guests can now use Street View to take a 360-degree virtual tour of various Disney theme parks and resorts, including Disneyland California Adventure, Downtown Disney, Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, Disney Springs, Typhoon Lagoon, Blizzard Beach, and the Wide World of Sports Complex. Well, a bit of the Voodoo Donut menu over at Universal Orlando has been revealed. The menu includes donuts like the Oh Captain My Captain, which is a Captain Crunch Top donut, the Grape Ape, which is a vanilla frosted donut covered with grape dust and lavender sprinkles, the Bacon Maple Bar, which is a maple donut topped with bacon, and there's dozens and dozens more. Voodoo will open over at City Walk in Universal Orlando Resort in the spring. So we don't have an opening date quite yet. However, there's a Voodoo Donut out here where I live, and I have to tell you, if you haven't experienced Voodoo yet, you're not living yet. It is excellent. Definitely would recommend. Definitely keep an eye for when this Voodoo opens in Orlando, and definitely make an effort to stop by on your next trip out there. Busch Gardens Tampa has introduced 16 new dishes for their Food and Wine Festival 2018. This brings their total food offerings to 35. Some of the new dishes include truffle seafood mac and cheese, tostados rellenos de pollo, boiled peanut hummus, smoked trout, and many, many more. The festival also boasts 65 fine wines and 50 craft beers. And the festival will run until April 29th. So make sure you get out there and try some of this delicious new food. Alright, so it's been a while since I've done this. Taking a little bit of a break. Been much needed. Life got a little crazy. But this bit of news is what brought me back into wanting to do this consistently and doing this again. And that news is that Bob Iger has announced a €2 billion expansion for Disneyland Paris. The new expansion will bring a massive lake, Marvel-themed attractions and areas, the Kingdom of Arendelle from Frozen, and what appears to be Star Wars Galaxy's Edge over to the Walt Disney Studios Park. Development will begin in phases starting in 2021 and will include the reimagining of Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith into a high-speed Iron Man attraction. Now, this is something that park desperately needs. Basically, the only thing that park has going for it right now is Rock and Roller Coaster, Crush's Go Coaster, and the Ratatouille attraction. Everything else is just subpar. Yeah, they have Tower of Terror, but that was a clone of the one that was put in over at Disneyland. And that is now, Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's no word if the one in Paris will remain as Tower of Terror, or if it will convert over to Guardians of the Galaxy. Having just got back from a trip to Disneyland, I will say that the Guardians of the Galaxy ride is an excellent attraction, and I do think that it will fit in very well over in Paris. However, I would still like to see a version of Tower of Terror remain. Whether that is in Florida, or I guess the one in Tokyo doesn't really count because it's not the Twilight Zone at all. So fingers crossed that if they do get Guardians of the Galaxy, that doesn't mean that Disney World Orlando will get it. But everything else Marvel will be over on that side of the park. So it's going to be over where Walk and Roller Coaster is, which kind of is, for those of you that haven't been, is basically Tower of Terror's back. So about a third of the park will be converted into Marvel, and back behind that, we're going to keep walking down, and there's going to be this giant lake, which I'm very curious about the scale of this thing. This thing will be, because based off the concept art, this lake is absolutely massive. And directly on the other side of that lake is the Kingdom of Arendelle. And to the left of that is Galaxy's Edge, which looks tiny in comparison to the Frozen area. So I'm curious to see, 1, how big that Frozen land will be, 2, what attractions are they going to put in there, or what restaurants or something, because this is a massive, massive mountain, giant structure that they're building. And 3, how successful it will really be. Because we all know that Star Wars has been around since the 70s, and it is still extremely in the forefront of pop culture. Granted, Disney has kind of pushed that a little more, but I kind of wonder if Frozen will really stick around as long. I also wonder if we will get Frozen Ever After over there. And if that's the case, it seems like the only original attraction that Disneyland Paris is getting is a reimagining of Rock and Roller Coaster, which in and of itself isn't necessarily an original attraction. So it looks like Disneyland Paris kind of yet again is getting the short end of the stick, even though this is a really, really awesome expansion to the park. Very needed to that park. They still are getting new experience. They still aren't getting the new experiences that we here in the States aren't getting necessarily, depending on what goes into the Frozen area, the Frozen Land. I really hope that if they do bring over Galaxy's Edge, that they leave room for expansion, like they left room over at Disneyland in Hollywood Studios. However, I do hope they bring something a little different to that one, because we all know that Disneyland and Hollywood Studios are getting the same exact, not essentially, they're getting the same exact land. So I really hope that something new comes to Disneyland Paris, just for the sake of that park. And I hope that they don't just bring over Frozen Ever After. I hope they actually bring over some new original, really cool, fun interactive, maybe attraction or two. I mean, you are pretty much guaranteed to get at least one attraction and one restaurant in every land. So we are going to get some unique Frozen dining experiences over there, which will be really cool. And then there's this concept art off to the right of the lake. There's a ton of land over there for future expansion. And having been to this resort, having ridden a bus throughout the resort, they have plenty of land over there to expand. So I'm not worried about any kind of size or space restriction over there like they have at Disneyland. They have the space, they have the room, and apparently they have the money, the cash flow, to truly do something special to this park. And I really hope they do. I hope they bring this park into the limelight and make people want to go to that park over at Disneyland Paris Park. And I think that Star Wars alone will be enough of a draw to do that. Kind of like what Disney World is doing over at Hollywood Studios. Just bringing Star Wars over to boost that park's attendance. But yeah, I'm excited to see if they do get Star Wars Land and how big the Kingdom of Arendelle is actually going to be. And then whatever future expansions they have on the right side of that lake. People are talking right now that it's Cars Land, which I would like to see something a little bit more original. I don't want to see Disney just taking everything they've already built and pushing it over there. That seems kind of lame to me. Seems like a bit of a cop-out. I want to see something original. I want to see something to distinguish Disneyland Paris from the other parks, and to distinguish that Walt Disney Studios park from the other parks. So I really hope that we're getting more original stuff over there, and not just a rehashing of old stuff. Well, that just about wraps it up for the news this week. Well, thank you for listening to the Mistakably Magic podcast. Go ahead and check out our social media at Mistakably Magic on Twitter, Mistakably Magic on Instagram, or Facebook.com/Mistakably Magic. And if you like what we're doing over here, and you like listening to us, and if you want me to continue to do this more regularly, a little incentive for me is if you head on over to mistakablymagic.spreadshirt.com and buy a shirt. If I see you at a theme park with one of the shirts on, I will personally buy you a Mickey ice cream bar, or the equivalent in whatever park I'm in that I happen to see you at. I will buy that for you. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or anything that you think I should be talking about on a fairly regular basis, go ahead and shoot me an email over at mistakablymagic@gmail.com. Head over to our YouTube page, where you can find all of our old shows and a couple of after shows. We were doing that for a little bit. Just search YouTube. Actually, just go to YouTube and search Mistakably Magic. Go ahead and leave us a review on iTunes. That would help me out a ton. Big thank you to our friend Dylan over at Blast Off Branding for making our awesome logo. And go ahead and check out our friends on the Mistakably Star Wars podcast. And I have one more shout out this week, and that's to Cort. The podcast is back, man. I hope that you enjoy this, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this. You said Monday, so every Monday morning. I hope I don't bore you too much. Well, that just about wraps it up this week. So I hope you all have a magical week, and I will see you really soon.